Alright guys, this is a quick demonstration of the cold start assist and the engine warm-up feature for the Banshee VGT controller. So with the engine cold start assist, if it's enabled, regardless if your exhaust brake switch is on or off, when the truck is off, it's going to close the brake to 100%. And then once you catch the engine, it's predefined at 500 RPMs. Once that happens, it's going to open up the turbo. If the engine dies right after again, it's going to close it back up to 100% again. The whole point of this is to build exhaust pressure. The exhaust pressure while the engine's cranking is going to basically recirculate within the cylinders, and it's going to help heat the engine. Once the engine starts up, you don't want the exhaust brake on at 100%. It'll actually choke the engine down. So with the exhaust brake button off, what you should see is a little bit of, you should see a little bit of pressure. Haven't done this with the Edge yet, but when you have the laptop connected, you'll see it. Alright, so it went up to about 20 pounds, and then once the engine caught, went over 500, it opened up. So now the turbo is currently sitting at a starting position, which on my truck is 20%. Now I'm going to do anything again, except I'm going to hit the exhaust brake. So now what's going to happen is once the engine catches, it's going to slowly open the turbo, attempt to get 20 pounds of exhaust pressure, and then it's going to sit there and hold the 20 pounds of exhaust pressure until you give it gas, which is the APP, shows you how much throttle you have, or unless you go over the threshold of 1300 RPMs, which is user defined. I just set mine to 1300 RPMs. So what happened is the logic, the default position is the VGT starting position. So it opens up and then it counts down instead of staying closed and opening up. If it stays closed and opens up, then it basically bogs your motor down, and it's kind of rough idle for, you know, a second or two until it finds a spot. Now it'll sit here between 19, 20, might go up a little bit. When the engine's cold, you know, the injectors and everything's warming up, so your engine might fluctuate a little bit. And as it fluctuates, you know, you're increasing and decreasing the exhaust pressure, so you'll have little spikes. So now I'm going to hit my high idle, and you'll see it'll build a little bit more pressure, and then the controller will open it back up, and it'll maintain that 20 pounds. Now this is also user defined. You can set whatever PSI you want. 20 pounds to me, I think, is fine. If I have that turbo all the way closed and I'm just idling, I can make about 35, 40 pounds of pressure. 20 pounds, the engine likes to breathe. Another thing I noticed is my high idle, you know, it's about 1100 RPMs. If the brake's already closed, when I engage the high idle, it actually fluctuates between 8 and 950, so it has a hard time trying to idle up the motor. Now if you look at the APP, when I give it a little bit of throttle, the high idle's still going, but it opens up the turbo. So now the turbo's sitting at its default position, which is 20%. Take my foot off the gas, it should start counting back down. Well, I might not with the high idle going on, actually. Oh, there it goes. Now if I turn the high idle off, and as soon as I give it gas, it turns off again. I'm going to rev up the motor to 1300 RPMs, which is my threshold to turn off the cold start assist / the wet stack prevention feature. And you'll notice when I take my foot off the gas, you might hear or you might see the exhaust pressure spike like that, and that's because my threshold to turn off the exhaust brake is 950. So as I take my foot off the gas, the exhaust brake logic kicks over, and then the ECU is trying to engage the exhaust brake, which is why it spikes on its way down. And then there's a timer. So if you have a 5.9 common rail, like I said in my previous videos, the ECU is trying to engage the exhaust brake. So if you have the wet stack prevention feature disabled, well, actually I take it back, enabled, and you have a high time. So I set mine to 1 minute, and initially I had it set to 5 minutes. And what I noticed is I actually got a check engine light. Now on the 5.9 common rails, it actually monitors, I can't remember if it was a crank sensor or a camshaft position sensor, and that's how the engine knows the exhaust brake's engaged. It looks for that shutter within the tone wheel. So if you have a high timer, the engine's trying to engage the exhaust brake, but the problem is the controller is not going to engage the exhaust brakes because that timer hasn't reset. And because of that, you'll actually throw a check engine light saying you have a faulty sensor. So if you set it to 1 minute, I've yet to have a check engine light out of 1 minute, and you're not constantly going down like it is right now to 20 pounds of exhaust pressure. You could try maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I haven't really done that. I just went from 5 minutes and I said screw it, went back down to 1 minute, and I haven't had a problem with it since. Now if you have a VP44 or if you have a P pump, the computer doesn't look at it like that, so it really doesn't matter. You can set it to 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes, as long as your foot's off the throttle, it's going to engage the exhaust brake like it's doing right now, which is regulated at 20 pounds. But yeah, that's it. I got 2 brother-in-laws. They both have newer 6.7s. Like I said, my truck is stock, and they feel my truck has more get up and go than their 6.7s do. That can be for emissions and other issues. I'm not really sure. Another idea that I'm playing around with my head is having one of the outputs of the Banshee controller going into the factory map sensor and act as a boost fooler. So the goal was, like right now I have an ATS boost fooler on here, and I'll do the same thing. You pinch it off so it only sees about 30 pounds of boost pressure. But the idea I had was when you go over maybe 950 RPMs, or maybe if you go over 1,000 RPMs, if the brake's not engaged, it tells the computer you have a minimum of 5 or 6 pounds of boost. I don't know what this is going to do, but I was thinking that it actually may fuel the engine sooner instead of actually waiting to get that pressure, and that might change the dynamic of the table. So people who want to keep the truck stock without, increasing your rail pressure and doing all this other crazy stuff, or if you don't have the money and you don't want to pay $1,000 or whatever it costs to have a good engine tune, that may be enough to fool it just to make it a little bit better off the line without actually changing a lot of dynamics of the engine computer. So that's an idea that I have. I don't know if it will work. It might be a waste of time to try it, but it might be something to pay attention to later on here in a few months when I get around to updating the software. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. My number is all over the internet. You can go to my website, steeds.tech, or even my Facebook page. And I try to answer as many questions as I can as fast as I can. I am in the Army, so sometimes it takes me a little bit longer to get back to people. Thanks. Bye.